rocking with DJ Kaza. DJ Kaza in your ears. DJ Kaza in your ears.
What can I say about One Rock? I mean, it's been a wonderful joy for us. Coming out of the pandemic, kind of lost time for music, and realizing we need to really say something serious about life and about where we're headed as the human race. And also we need to preserve these great legends of ours while they're still with us. So this is where the idea came for the featuring on the album One Rock as Israel Vibration, the Abyssinians, and the Congos. For me, there are no greater living harmony groups. And you see, even in the few months that we spent recording the album, Skelly of Israel Vibration has passed away. So the album shows and is like a stamp of history that this is the last recording of Israel Vibration. So very proud, and the music is so different. We have the string trio on a few songs, 2 violins and viola, the arrangements. I really feel like we set out to do something and we put the standard in the bar very high, like something that it wasn't even possible. Even the featuring was like a dream for me, but we achieved the work. Yeah, original rhythm. Well, there's so many layers to the story. Original rhythm is trying to remind people about the origins of life and how the earth has this energy and vibration and how each of us have this heart that beats a rhythm in our chest. And together we are music. And we've done this musical thing longer than any religion, longer than any language. We've had music as a part of our collective energies for tens of thousands of years. Wailing in the bush, banging on rocks and logs. So music is a part of our DNA, from Africa, from the homeland. And so original rhythm is calling back to that. While at the same time, who better to feature than both Israel Vibration and the Abyssinians together on one song, in speaking of the unity, in speaking of the human lineage. I mean, these are our forefathers in the music. So original rhythm is to remind people that long before the separations of people, we were one family, and that was joined through music. And really, original rhythm on another level is like taking it back to its foundation. Because today, most music is made with computers. And most music, the band goes in the studio, and at least the drummer is going beep, doop, 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 beep, doop in his ear. But for thousands of years, we never made music like that. We created music as a sound, whether 2 people, whether a tribe of 100 people, that rhythm and that motion and that energy was created just by humans alone. So too, Groundation, when we go in the studio and record original rhythm and the whole album, it's just the musicians, the drummer counting off the song, playing, recording onto the 2-inch analog tape, just as we play it. And to me, so that's why I say that original rhythm has many layers in its message, in the featuring, and also in the way we made the song. Yeah, this is the second track on the record, and this is before the division. That's why in the song I say, before the politicians came in, only rivers of water and mountain divided all of us. And that's the truth. It was just from distance alone. There was no separation of religions or separation of race and color and nationalities. Long before all these things, we're one people. And human race also. The very end of original rhythm is when the strings it come in at the very outro, when we kind of go wild at the end of original rhythm. But Human Race is the first song on the record that features the string trio. And to me, there's an emotion in the strings, it's different than when you do like a whole orchestra, like for a movie or something. When you have a string trio, you really feel all the movements and all of the dynamics of what they're playing. And that goes really hand in hand with the song, that emotional sentiment of, remember when we were one people? Remember the beauty of that? Long before the divide and rule came in and all of these stuff. That's why the bridge, it lifts up. If love was the rule, would all this remain the same? Right? For Jah lives in everything. And that to me is, when it gets to the next song now, greed and day when the computer done market price, this is where the division comes in. But human race is that song that's sentimental and emotional, saying it doesn't have to be this way, Well, during this pandemic, for the first months, to be honest, I was lost, man. I was lost. I didn't know what to do. And I'm not into the social medias, everybody posting and talking to the camera. I think the one thing I said on social media was, for the first time in my life, I did not feel inspired to pick up the guitar. I didn't feel like playing music and having that energy. It was two things. You're seeing the great loss of life. Everybody, friends, family, loved ones, whether it's COVID or some other disease, you can't be with them. And so you say goodbye to so many people. It's heartbreaking. At the same time, in America, you had this orange-faced demon as the head. And you see that, man, during this time, people are going to be making billions of dollars off this. Loss of life and this corruption of this ultra-wealthy. So I was upset, man. I was angry. That's how COVID first hit. And I didn't want to perform for a camera or perform for my phone or something like that. There's no spirit in that. And man, I felt down. And it really caused me to reflect on life. Are we ever going to come back to music? Is it going to be something where I show my children YouTube videos of Groundation on stage to a big crowd and my children say to me, "Oh, Dad, people could be like that? People could stand shoulder to shoulder and people could be together, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 people, So it was like, is music going to come back? And it was my wife who said, what about teaching? And that's when the idea came of teaching the history of reggae music, as I did 20-something years ago, online, and offering the course to people, and people could sign up from Argentina, Israel, Brazil, France, California, Australia. People from all over the world came into the course. I taught 2 courses, and it was really wonderful. As you know, Kaza, I'm a big man of reggae history, and I love honoring where it's coming from, because the story is so beautiful and miraculous. To think about Marcus Garvey and Selassie and Bob Marley and all these magical things that had to happen at one moment is really something the world's never going to see again. So it's a joy for me to teach it. So in the COVID, I began to do this 6 weeks course, once a week live on Zoom. The first hour is me lecturing about the history from the very beginning of the Arawaks and the Spanish colonial rule and British and African slave trade, and all the way through to modern reggae. And then the next hour would be a live guest, somebody who was there with Duke Reed and with Coxon, and somebody who could talk about where this music really comes from. Winston Jarrett, Ashanti Roy, Robbie Lynn, so many of these great musicians. And it was really a joy, and I could see in the students, again, all ages and all walks of life, and they were just, thank you so much, for giving us something during this time. So that's what I ended up doing, was focusing on one rock album and teaching the history of reggae music. Of course. I mean, we have to change our way of life, our way of thinking. And it comes from the third song on the album called Greed, No matter all these wants and all these needs, we must live within Earth's means. You can't take more than the Earth gives. But right now, we take without any consideration. Like the rich man on the hill. They don't care. They just want more money. If you were to say to them, man, every 30 seconds, a child in Sudan is dying of malnutrition. And you have $100 billion? It's sickening. No, the world is in a bad way. We have to change how we're doing it. We have to change our whole concept of the earth, you know? It comes like, Pablo Moses says this in the film Holding On to Jah. It comes like the first world, talking about the uncivilized. It comes out the uncivilized people are more civilized than them, talking about the indigenous people, the people who live from the land. That's the way of life. You have to honor where all of this comes from, you know? So, yes, instead of thinking of, I need more from me, you have to think of the balance of the earth. So we must teach our children, and it will change, because the older generation is going to be gone. They're going to just die off. And the younger ones with this consciousness of, hey, it's one earth. These rich billionaires can shoot off into rockets into Mars, but there's no life to be lived on Mars. This is where our life is. So clean up the earth. There's still time. Just like I say in the songs, you know, as sure as the sun shines, yeah, there's still time to do it. Yeah, it has been different. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we always had a deadline, you know? And we would write the songs, compose, and some of the songs I would bring in, and we would just say, okay, well, we're going to have this open section that we're going to write a horn line and put over it, not knowing what it's going to be. But now with the pandemic, everything postponed, the album changed a lot. And so I talked to the musicians. I said, okay, well, we have these ideas. Let's start demoing them, because everybody has their little home studio. And so I would record on acoustic guitar, the basic framework, and then I would sing the vocal, put the electric guitar on, remove the scratch, and then the drummer put the drums on, the bass, and we could really work on these arrangements. So now these horn lines, these strings, we know the parts. So the bass and the drums can accentuate that, can hit the same hits. So the compositions are much more complete, much more thought out. And I feel like the level of musicianship and quality is a lot more, you know, than some of these past albums where, because the tour starts here, the album needs to be here, we need to have master here. So all of a sudden we're in the studio having to finish the record. And some of them, some big ideas, we got close to what I had in my mind, but not exactly, you know? But this album is much more of a fulfilled concept than the rest.
Just another human being with all our wants.
It has been an amazing ride. And really, it's from the great people of France and Paris that have supported us. And even when we talk about it, I mention it on stage and other interviews too. When you really check it, the French public, they know music. They really know music. They feel it. You know, when Miles Davis was getting beaten up in Chicago and nobody wanted to hear nothing about him, it was Paris that really embraced jazz and Miles and all these things. Miles never even wanted to go back to the United States after coming here. And the same with Pink Floyd. They were playing little clubs in the UK and Germany, and it was France that said, no, this band, you know? And Bob Marley also. I mean, little clubs here and there, but France is the one to say, yes, this is it. So there's something about the public here. Nobody needs to tell the French people what's good. It's like the French people tell the world what's good, and then the world goes, oh, okay, yeah, the Parisians are right. You know, this is it. And I feel that way with Groundation because the music is different. The music is very challenging, just like Seventh Seal that I just played. It's not your standard 4/4 reggae, common time, which all of reggae is. We go outside of that. We don't stay in key centers. We have these long solos and improvised sections. So you need to have a mind for that. And some of the songs are through composed, meaning that there's no chorus. There's no, they always say in pop music, get to the hook, get the hook, There is no hook. It's just how the music feels and where it takes you. People have responded here, supported Groundation. Saturday's wonderful evening at Olympia. That was amazing for us, It's a joy, especially coming from the pandemic. And especially for the loss of our friend Rich Armstrong, the trumpet player, who died very suddenly just before we took the flight. So we needed it. And the Parisian people, they really supported us. So we give thanks. Merci.
Harrison, give thanks for your time.
Yeah, man.
Give thanks for your new album, beautiful. Give thanks for more. And you and friends is a long story.
It is.
It's a long story.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a beautiful one.
I'm look the first video in my radio show. You and me young,
Yeah, right. Before the grades. I remember that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's been a long story. And we just wanted to continue,
Yeah.
And the hopes of Groundation is to inspire other musicians. Well, you can try different things. You can break outside the box.